Hello and welcome to the under renovation Gallant Goblin. My name is Grady. Your regularly scheduled host Theo is currently unavailable. He is trapped deep under a mountain of boxes, calling it Skullport. Today we're looking at Monster Menagerie, also known nowadays as Monster Menagerie 1 from WizKids Icons of the Realms pre-painted miniatures. This was the fourth in the Icons of the Realms line and released in April 2016. If you already know our spiel, you can go into the video description below for timestamps to skip ahead to the minis or any other section that strikes your interest. Otherwise, some background on the set. It was the first set that wasn't directly correlated with an adventure sourcebook, though I would note an asterisk next to that statement, which we'll cover in a moment. As the name would suggest, the Monster Menagerie sets are mostly intended to be monsters that you could encounter across any campaign, rather than being themed for something specific. Their chance to fill in the gaps, so to speak. This is as opposed to most other sets in which a majority of the minis are themed for a specific storyline, though even then you could get some unrelated generic creatures or NPCs or things for earlier adventures. So for example, sets 1 through 3 were Tyranny of Dragons, which was linked to the Tiamat adventures Hoard of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat, followed by Elemental Evil, which corresponded with the release of the Princes of the Apocalypse campaign, and then Rage of Demons, which was for Out of the Abyss. That said, March 2016 saw the release of Curse of Strahd, which never got its own miniature set from Icons of the Realms. You will notice, however, that a lot of minis in this box are either specifically for Curse of Strahd or feature extensively in there, such as the eponymous Strahd and his vampires and werewolves and various other ghosts and undead creatures. As usual, we will not be showing all the invisible variants because they are simply the same sculpt as an existing mini but made of clear plastic and unpainted. Here's an example of the number 25 Displacer Beast and its invisible variant to illustrate. There is a listing of all the invisible variants that exist for this set at the end of the video if you're curious, but even if you buy a case, you will only get 2 invisibles, so the only way to get them all is really through the aftermarket. We don't usually find them worth the time and money. Additionally, we did not buy a full case for this set. We already had quite a few of the minis from the time before the Gallant Goblin, and so it was cheaper for us to buy singles to fill out the collection. As a result, some of the minis may be a bit bent, but it could have been due to shipping, and we can't really speak for how they come out of the box. Obviously, we also can't provide a rarity distribution breakdown for a case. So with that in mind, the main event. Faerie Dragons are small spellcasters who like to stay invisible and play innocuous pranks on travelers. If your party takes its antics in stride, it may appear to you once it's had its fun. They're fond of sweets and baubles and may exchange information or assistance for some. They have butterfly wings and are about the size of a cat. They change colors as they age, spanning the rainbow from red when they're young to violet when they're over 50 years old. They have a euphoria breath to incapacitate foes and gain spells as they age, acquiring polymorph when they turn violet. This mini would represent an older Faerie Dragon, between 30 and 50 years of age. They are described in the Monster Manual and appear in Dragon Heist and random forest encounters in the DM's and Xanathar's guides. Otto is a named Faerie Dragon who appears in Dungeon of the Mad Mage, with an interesting twist, so he has a unique mini in the WizKids Icons of the Realms Dungeon of the Mad Mage set. Young Faerie Dragons have a challenge rating of 1, while older Faerie Dragons have a challenge rating of 2. Imps are lesser demons found in the lower planes, though they can also be summoned as a familiar for evil spellcasters. They will serve any evildoer, demon or mortal, but can only be trusted with simple tasks, and even then may not perform them effectively. They can transform into the shape of any animal at will. They can also turn invisible, so they are sometimes used as spies or scouts. Their dark vision penetrates even magical darkness, and they are immune to fire and poison. Imps are found in the basic rules, and variant stats for use as a familiar are found in the Monster Manual. Both versions have a challenge rating of 1. Some adventures they appear in include Dragon Heist, Curse of Strahd, and Storm King's Thunder. Don't let their cute appearance fool you. Will-o-wisps are the undead souls of evildoers who died in a place of powerful magic. Their sole desire in death is to lure others to their doom, whether that be into some natural trap or the lair of a villainous ally. They appear as small balls of light, resembling distant lanterns that tempt lost creatures to follow them. They feast on the despair of the dying and can attempt to consume the life force of an unconscious creature, killing them instantly. Will-O-Wisps have a challenge rating of 2 and are in the basic rules. They potentially appear in most adventures, including Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Tomb of Annihilation, and Hoard of the Dragon Queen, and are in Xanathar's Guide's random swamp and urban encounter tables. Giant fire beetles are small animals with glowing glands who illuminate the area around them. That glow gives them their name, as opposed to any affinity for fire. The glands continue to glow for several days after they die, so they are harvested by adventurers and miners when exploring dark places. They have a challenge rating of 0 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in Dungeon of the Mad Mage and Tales from the Yawning Portal, and can be summoned by a Conjure Animal or Conjure Fae spell. Jarhild Stoneforge is the first of 5 named characters in this set who come from the video game Sword Coast Legends, which is an RPG that came out for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation in 2015. The game shut down in 2018, with its development studio disbanded, and is, for all intents and purposes, no longer playable. The Sword Coast Legends characters do not appear in any sourcebooks. Their minis can be used as player characters or generic NPCs, if so desired. Alternatively, Wizards of the Coast published official descriptions and stat blocks for incorporating the characters into a tabletop game, and a link to the online article of Dragon Magazine is provided in the video description below. As for Jarhild, she is a shield dwarf fighter from Luskan, whose guild was wiped out and is on a quest to avenge them. She is lawful good, a defensive fighter, and has a challenge rating of 2. Larethar Gulgrin is also from the video game Sword Coast Legends. He is a gold dwarf rogue from Luskan of neutral alignment, who is good friends with and the bodyguard of Illydia Mathalin, who will show up later as number 24 in this set. He is a drunk with a heart of gold brought out by his association with Illydia. He was born in Westgate to parents from the East Rift, but his family moved to Luskan after his smuggler father was murdered by rivals. He has pretty standard thief abilities and a challenge rating of 2. Specters are the spirits of humanoids unable to leave the material plane. Unlike ghosts, who can leave when they finish the unfinished business that keeps them trapped there, specters will never depart. Specters cannot be saved, only destroyed. Their fate is usually caused by dark magic or a wraith's attack. Due to their plight, they hate all living creatures and will try to kill any they encounter. They move through creatures as though they were difficult terrain, and in combat, they have a life drain attack that reduces maximum hit points, killing a creature if it reduces their max HP to 0. Specters have a challenge rating of 1 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in almost every major adventure to date. A Strahd Zombie is an undead creature that serves Strahd Tsarevich, the eponymous villain of the adventure Curse of Strahd. They are tougher than regular zombies. In combat, they will lose body parts when they take significant damage, as depicted in this mini. But all the severed parts continue to take actions until the zombie reaches 0 hit points. If it hasn't lost body parts, it can attack 3 times per turn instead of once. These abilities combine to give the Strahd Zombie a challenge rating of 1, compared to the 1/4 of a regular zombie. We are not aware of the Strahd Zombie being used in any adventure other than Curse of Strahd, but intrepid DMs could certainly transfer its abilities to regular zombies, as dictated by flavor and difficulty requirements. The wolf is a medium-sized beast with keen hearing and smell. It is also often a party's first introduction to pack tactics, meaning the wolf has advantage on attacks if it has at least one ally who is not incapacitated next to its target. A wolf has a challenge rating of 1/4 and is in the basic rules. It can be summoned by a Conjure Animal or Conjure Fae spell. Wolves may show up in wilderness encounters, as pets of creatures such as goblinoids, or as a Beastmaster Ranger companion. This mini could also be used as the wolf form for werewolves. A wolf should not be confused with a direwolf or a winter wolf, which are separate stat blocks and also have unique minis in other WizKids sets. Mummies are undead creatures typically found in temples and tombs, similar to their depiction in popular culture. They have 2 attacks each turn. Their Rotting Fist attack confers a mummy rot curse against creatures that causes a victim's maximum health to reduce over time until they die and turn to dust. Mummies can also use a dreadful glare, which causes creatures to become frightened or even paralyzed. Mummies have a challenge rating of 3 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in Rise of Tiamat, Tomb of Annihilation, and Xanathar's Guide's Desert Encounters table.
Dryads are created when lesser fae spirits are bound to a tree by a stronger fae, typically as punishment for falling in love with a mortal. A dryad moves freely in the area around her tree. She can speak with plants and animals and teleport between trees. Dryads defend the forest, and as long as the tree to which they are bound remains healthy, they will appear young and beautiful. But if their tree is damaged or destroyed, the dryad is also harmed or driven insane. They can charm up to 1 humanoid or 3 beasts simultaneously. Dryads have a challenge rating of 1 and are found in the basic rules. They can be summoned through conjure woodland beings or conjure fae spells. Skeletons are evil undead bodies raised by spellcasters. Though shown as a humanoid, the skeleton stat block can be used for any animated skeleton, though certain unique stats exist as well, such as Minotaur and Warhorse skeletons. Standard skeletons are typically armed with a short sword and short bow. While they may perform some rudimentary behaviors reminiscent of their body's living activities, the skeletons are independent from the souls that once inhabited the body. If a resurrection spell is cast on the body to restore the soul, it breaks the spell animating the skeleton. Skeletons have a challenge rating of 1/4 and are found in the basic rules. They can be created by the Animate Dead spell. They appear in Tomb of Annihilation, Curse of Strahd, and Dungeon of the Mad Mage, among other adventures. Orcs are a tribal race that engages in violence against most other humanoids. They are chaotic evil, but may serve evil masters more powerful than themselves. They use a javelin and great axe in combat, and have the aggressive trait, which lets them move faster toward an opponent. A generic orc has a challenge rating of 1/2, and can be found in the basic rules. They are a pretty common race and show up in many adventures. They were also made available as a playable race in Volo's Guide to Monsters. Mimics are shapeshifters that can take the form of inanimate objects as long as they stay motionless. They favor objects that adventurers will interact with, such as treasure chests and doors. When transformed, they are covered by a sticky adhesive that grapples anything that touches it. It also has advantage attacking creatures it has grappled. Once it attacks its prey, it sprouts pseudopods resembling tendrils to further grapple and damage foes. Mimics have a challenge rating of 2 and are found in the basic rules. They tend to show up in dungeons and appear in Out of the Abyss, Tomb of Annihilation, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and Curse of Strahd. Satyrs are fey creatures found in forests. Their top half is that of a human male, while their bottom half is the body of a goat, and horns sprout from their heads. They are hedonistic, enjoying music, dancing, and alcohol. They will show up at any festival, and often cause others to go into a pleasure-seeking frenzy. They can ram opponents with their horns in combat. Satyrs have a challenge rating of 1/2 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in Storm King's Thunder, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and Forest Encounter tables in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. The Githyanki are a lawful evil, xenophobic race descended from the same ancestors as their mortal foes, the lawful neutral Githzerai. Both races were twisted under enslavement by mind flayers. They have psionic powers as a result, allowing them to escape divination magic detection and to teleport. They wield distinctive greatswords called Silver Swords that deal psychic damage on hit, with each sword considered a unique and treasured artifact, and they can attack twice each round with the sword. Their entire society is oriented toward war and separated into castes. The Githyanki Warrior has a challenge rating of 3 and is found in the Monster Manual. They appear in Rakma, an introductory adventure for Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, as well as Dungeon of the Mad Mage. They exist in the Wayfarer's Guide to Eberron setting as well, and the Githyanki became a playable race in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. Merfolk live under the water, with the top half of their bodies resembling a human and the bottom half a fish. They have diverse cultures and usually live in hunter-gatherer tribes due to their environment preventing them from making fire to create weapons or tools. They stay in shallow waters, rarely venturing into the dark depths or up to the surface, though they can breathe air if needed. They fight with spears that they salvage from shipwrecks. Merfolk have a challenge rating of 1/8 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in Tomb of Annihilation, Dragon Heist, Storm King's Thunder, and Underwater Encounters tables. Medusas are vain men and women who prayed to evil patrons for immortality, beauty, youth, and universal adoration. In exchange, they are cursed to become Medusas. Their hair becomes snakes, and anyone who sees their appearance turns to stone. This petrification can happen to the Medusa as well, so they must destroy any reflective surfaces in their lair. Medusas tend to retreat inside their homes and allow their surroundings to fall to ruin. Adventurers may attempt to avoid looking at Medusas when attacking them to avoid petrification, but will be unable to see where the Medusas are and attack at a disadvantage. Note, these standard Medusas are distinct from the Medusas of Ravnica, who can control their ability to petrify. Medusas attack 3 times per turn, twice with a short sword and once with their snake hair. At distance, they use a longbow. Medusas have a challenge rating of 6 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in Out of the Abyss, Princes of the Apocalypse, Lost Laboratory of Quailish, and Xanathar's Guide's Desert Encounters table. Ghosts are undead spirits bound to a place or object that possessed significance to its soul and life. They have unfinished business and will leave the material plane when that business is concluded. They can also be fought and destroyed, but usually a weakness from its life must be used to eliminate it permanently. They can freely travel to the ethereal plane, frighten enemies, and possess the body of humanoids. Ghosts have a challenge rating of 4 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in almost all of the adventures. Werewolves suffer from a curse of lycanthropy, which can be passed along through a bite from a lycanthrope, which is curable via remove curse, or to a child from parents who have the curse, in which case the wish spell is required to free them of the curse. Those who resist the curse retain their alignment and personality, but transform under a full moon. Those who embrace the curse may learn to transform at will from humanoid to a hybrid form to animal form, in this case a wolf, but doing so often turns them vicious and evil. Werewolves are a particularly dangerous lycanthrope type, and so those with a werewolf curse often live far from civilization. Werewolves have a challenge rating of 3 and are found in the basic rules. Rules for a player character becoming a lycanthrope are in the Monster Manual. Werewolves feature prominently in Curse of Strahd. They also appear in Princes of the Apocalypse, Dragon Heist, Storm King's Thunder, and Hill and Forest Encounters tables in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Bryn Lightfingers is from the Sword Coast Legends video game. She is a Strongheart halfling ranger from Red Larch, of neutral good alignment. Her parents were bakers, but she and her brother Bellamy left their home in search of adventure. Bryn trained with rangers from Ardeep Forest. She has a quick temper, but her more positive qualities tend to outweigh that flaw in other people's eyes. Like the other Legends characters, her stat block gives her a challenge rating of 2 and is pretty standard for her race and class. Hamlet Shaw is also from the Sword Coast Legends video game. He is a human wizard necromancer from Longsaddle, but he is of neutral alignment and learned necromancy from a non-evil aligned teacher. He is capable, but has low self-esteem, trying to find his place in the world. He is a 3rd level spellcaster with a necromancy-flavored spell list, and has a challenge rating of 2. Vampires are powerful undead monsters with legendary actions, meaning they can take actions during a combat round, even when it isn't their turn. They have a lair where they keep their coffin. They can shapeshift, turn to mist, climb walls, and charm creatures. They are weak to running water, sunlight, and wooden stakes. Vampires have a challenge rating of 13 and are found in the basic rules. The eponymous villain of Curse of Strahd is a vampire, though he has a unique stat block. Vampires also appear in Dungeon of the Mad Mage and Tales from the Yawning Portal. Illydia Mathalin is the 5th and last Sword Coast Legends video game character in this set, alongside Hommet, Bryn, Larethar, and Jarhild. She is a moon elf cleric of the elf goddess Seanine Moonbow. She is chaotic good alignment and relied on her faith to get her through the significant travails and losses she's experienced in her 140 years of life. She also seeks to atone for mistakes in her past. Illydia is a 3rd level spellcaster with a spell list appropriate for a cleric of her deity. She has a challenge rating of 2. Displacer beasts are predators from the Feywilds. They are reasonably intelligent for beasts. They were captured and bred for hunting by the Unseelie Court, but when they escaped and ran loose, they were hunted down by the Seelie Court and their blink dogs. Some Displacer beasts fled the Feywild to the material plane as a result, but they all remember their past persecution and will fight blink dogs on sight. They are named for their displacement ability, which makes them look like they're standing a distance away from their actual location, with a successful strike against them briefly breaking the illusion. Displacer Beasts tend to attack twice, with the tentacles growing from their shoulders. They have a challenge rating of 3 and are found in the Monster Manual. They appear in Dragon Heist, Tales from the Yawning Portal, and Dungeon of the Mad Mage. A swarm of bats is pretty much what it sounds like. Bats use echolocation, meaning they have blind sight unless deafened, and gain advantage on perception checks using hearing. As a swarm, they can occupy the same space as another creature, and though the swarm constitutes a medium-sized creature, it can fit through any opening a tiny creature can, as the individual bats count as tiny. The swarm of bats has a challenge rating of 1/4 and is found in the basic rules. It appears in Out of the Abyss, Tales from the Yawning Portal, Curse of Strahd, Lost Laboratory of Quailish, Tomb of Annihilation, Princes of the Apocalypse, and more. It can be summoned via Conjure Animals or Conjure Fae spells, and is in the Xanathar's Guide, Underdark, Hill, Urban, and Forest encounters tables. Unicorns are good aligned celestials that look like horses with a horn on their head. The horn has magical properties, but any being who kills a unicorn will be targeted by gods in revenge. Unicorns live in and protect enchanted forests, fighting any evil that encroaches on their territory. They are legendary creatures with legendary actions and a lair. They can multi-attack with hooves and horn, and also have limited healing and teleportation abilities. In rare instances, gods may intervene to unite a champion with a unicorn as their mount in order to combat a great threat. Unicorns have a challenge rating of 5 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in Princes of the Apocalypse and Xanathar's Guide's Forest Encounters table. Xanathar's Guide to Everything also made them a possible celestial patron for the Warlock class. The Phase Spider is so named because it can freely move into the ethereal plane, seemingly blinking in and out of existence. Otherwise, it behaves like a large monster spider, able to climb on walls and ceilings, as well as move through webbing unhindered. Phase spiders have a challenge rating of 3 and appear in the basic rules. They appear in Dungeon of the Mad Mage and Xanathar's Guide's Encounters tables for hill, forest, desert, and grasslands environments. Yetis are large, white-furred monstrosities that live in the mountains, blending into the background until they strike. They do not typically approach settlements unless they run out of prey. In the harsh environment where they live, they are always on the hunt, and their senses have been heightened to smell prey and blood. One attacking a party may draw more nearby. They multi-attack with claws and a chilling gaze that can deal cold damage and paralyze a victim. They are afraid of fire. There is an abominable form of a Yeti, which is a huge creature with a separate stat block. Regular Yetis have a challenge rating of 3 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in Storm King's Thunder, Tales from the Yawning Portal, and the Arctic Encounters table of Xanathar's Guide to Everything. The Gelatinous Cube is a transparent ooze that is hard to see and can mainly be spotted by the clean floors it leaves in its wake, or by any bones or inorganic matter left inside it from creatures it has digested. It moves slowly, but if it catches up to a creature, the creature must attempt to use its strength to escape or become trapped inside, restrained, unable to breathe, and taking acid damage each turn it fails to succeed the strength check to escape. A gelatinous cube can engulf one large or up to 4 medium or smaller sized creatures simultaneously. It can also attack with pseudopods that extend from the cube. This mini comes in 2 pieces, with an ooze component sitting on a large-sized base and a 2x2-inch hollow cube that can be placed over it. You can fit a medium-sized mini inside the ooze component. Alternatively, you could get rid of the base and only use the cube. You can see here that for large-based minis, anything that's an unorthodox dimension will probably not fit inside the cube, but a lot of more standard large-sized minis will. As for whether you can fit 4 medium minis inside, well, let's take a look. A vampire, a rakshasa, an orc, and a satyr walk into a bar and are promptly consumed by jello shots. So we can see here that while it's a bit of a tight fit, this nightmare scenario can indeed come true on your table. There is also an identically sculpted, unpainted version of the Gelatinous Cube in the Nolzur's Marvelous Unpainted Miniatures line, which you should be able to find cheaper than buying this Gelatinous Cube single on the aftermarket. Since the transparent parts of this mini are not painted in either version, the only difference is the bones and metal come white in the Nolzur's line and silver in this Monster Menagerie version. Gelatinous Cubes have a challenge rating of 2 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Out of the Abyss, Tales from the Yawning Portal, Lost Laboratory of Quailish, and Xanathar's Guide's Underdark Encounters table. Centaurs are nomadic hunter-gatherers with the lower half of a horse and the upper half of a human. They tend to avoid combat, but are fierce fighters if forced to fight. The elderly or the ill are left behind by their tribe, the only situation when they might permanently settle. They attack twice per turn, either twice with a longbow or with a pike and hooves in melee. Centaurs have a challenge rating of 2 and are found in the basic rules. They became a playable race in the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. They appear in Storm King's Thunder and Tales from the Yawning Portal. Bullets are also known as Land Shark, though rather than knocking on your door and announcing themselves, they burrow through the earth, destroying any subterranean obstacles in their way, and exist only to consume any animals or humanoids they encounter. They dislike eating dwarves or elves, but since they attack indiscriminately, that fact won't save those races. They will remain in an area until they have eaten everything available, and then move on. Bullets are able to jump great distances, and can take advantage of that ability to land on a target's space for a special attack. Bullets have a challenge rating of 5 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in Princes of the Apocalypse, Storm King's Thunder, and Xanathar's Guide's Hill, Mountain, and Grassland Encounters tables. The Invisible Stalker is an air elemental summoned by a spellcaster. When tasked with tracking down a target, as long as the stalker and its target are on the same plane of existence, the stalker will always know their direction and the distance between them. It is also, per its name, invisible. When it finds its target, it will attack by repeatedly slamming the victim. Invisible stalkers have a challenge rating of 6 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in Princes of the Apocalypse, Curse of Strahd, Storm King's Thunder, Tomb of Annihilation, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and Tales from the Yawning Portal, as well as the Urban Encounters table in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Erinyes are devils who are so beautiful they are often mistaken for celestials and believed to be fallen angels. They are fierce fighters, though, equipped with custom armor, swords, and bows. They can be male or female, though they are typically depicted as female, and they are notable for their large wings. They can be more difficult to hit with a melee attack 3 times per turn, and have true sight. There are alternative stats for Erinyes equipped with rope or who can summon other devils. Erinyes have a challenge rating of 12 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in Tomb of Annihilation. Liches are wizards who embarked on a long, arduous path to immortality through undeath, usually striking a bargain with a powerful evil entity. They trap their soul in a phylactery and can continue regenerating as long as the phylactery remains intact. Destroying a phylactery often requires an entire quest line, though liches must periodically sacrifice others' souls to the phylactery to maintain its power. Liches have legendary actions in a lair and are incredibly powerful, capable of casting 9th level spells. It is not clear what spell effect is being wielded by this mini. The appearance does not match anything in the Lich's spell list, though there are certainly fire spells you could describe more dramatically than the source books, if you so desire. Otherwise, spells with similar descriptions include Burning Hands, Chaos Bolt, Fire Shield, or Investiture of Flame. The spell effect cannot be separated from the mini. Liches have a challenge rating of 21, or 22 if encountered in its lair, and appear in the basic rules. Due to their power, they are usually named NPCs of some import, and can be found in Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Curse of Strahd, Princes of the Apocalypse, Tales from the Yawning Portal, and Rise of Tiamat. Rakshasas are devils from the 9 hells who found a way to send their essence out of the lower planes. They resemble a mix between a tiger and a human, though they can cast Disguise Self at will, and often pretend to be someone powerful, like a lord or religious figure. They are motivated by amassing power and can reform their bodies if killed, unless killed in the 9 hells. They attack twice with claws, and if they hit, the target is cursed and unable to take short or long rests. Rakshasas are also immune to spells of 6th level or lower unless they choose to be affected. Rakshasas have a challenge rating of 13 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in Dragon Heist, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and Tales from the Yawning Portal, as well as Xanathar's Guide's Urban Encounters table. Succubi are shape-changing fiends who naturally appear as a woman with a devil's tail and leathery wings. Their male counterparts are called incubi. They can charm a single creature at a time for a day at a time, and any charmed or willing creature who kisses them takes psychic damage, which reduces their maximum hit points until their next long rest. A succubus maintains a telepathic link with a creature it has charmed, even across planes. Succubi have a challenge rating of 4 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in Rise of Tiamat, Storm King's Thunder, Out of the Abyss, Tales from the Yawning Portal, Tomb of Annihilation, and Xanathar's Guide's Urban Encounters table. Death Knights are paladins who have fallen from grace. They must typically have committed grave crimes and failed to attain redemption in life, attracting dark powers when they die that raise them as an evil undead. They are skeletal under their armor and often end up leading an undead horde. They cannot be permanently killed unless they choose to atone for their sins. Otherwise, they will keep reviving no matter how their body is destroyed. They can still cast divine spells, but cannot use them to heal anyone, including themselves. Death Knights have a challenge rating of 17 and are found in the Monster Manual. Named Death Knights appear in Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Esmeralda Avenire is a notable NPC in the Curse of Strahd adventure. She is a vampire hunter searching for her mentor. She is a 7th level spellcaster and has a number of special attacks. We'll leave it at that to avoid spoilers for those who want to play the adventure themselves. Esmeralda has a challenge rating of 8. The Curse of Strahd adventure is named for Strahd von Tsarevich. As with Esmeralda, we'll tread lightly on spoilers here, but you'll find out pretty early in the adventure that he is the ruler of an isolated location named Barovia, which is in Ravenloft, a distinct setting in D&D akin to the Forgotten Realms, Eberron, or Ravnica. He is a wizard and a vampire, with a campaign inspired by Transylvania and Dracula. Strahd has a challenge rating of 15. If you're not fond of this mini, you could use any number of other vampire minis for Strahd. As this adventure has been around for multiple editions of D&D, there is also one older painted mini of him from the Unhallowed set, which predates the Icons of the Realms line, but it is hard to track down. Manticores are monsters with the body of a lion, the wings of a dragon, and a human-ish head. They are aggressive predators, and while not very smart, are able to speak. They also aren't above attacking from a distance with their limited number of tail spikes before engaging in close combat. They may serve someone evil who is able to provide them with enough food to satiate their appetites. They may also be willing to bargain with adventurers if those adventurers can provide more food than if they were eaten themselves. Manticores have a challenge rating of 3 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in Princes of the Apocalypse, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Storm King's Thunder, and Tales from the Yawning Portal. Umber Hulks are large monsters who live deep beneath the earth and occasionally burrow into caves, dungeons, or the Underdark for food. Anyone who makes eye contact with an Umber Hulk may become extremely confused. Most survivors of an Umber Hulk attack are unable to remember what happened. Like when fighting a Medusa, adventurers can attempt to avoid that confusion by not looking at the monster, but then, obviously, you can't see what's happening, which provides significant disadvantages. Umber Hulks have a challenge rating of 5 and are found in the Monster Manual. They appear in Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Out of the Abyss, Princes of the Apocalypse, and Xanathar's Guide's Underdark Encounters table. Minotaurs resemble bipedal bulls and are created from humanoids who are lured into mysterious cults that often masquerade as druidic circles. In reality, the cults are overseen by the demon lord Baphomet. Once created, though, Minotaurs can reproduce as an independent race, opening them up to become a playable race. Minotaurs have photographic memories of paths they travel and are often found wandering maze-like areas, such as dungeons, city streets, caves, or ruins. They wield a great axe and can charge at foes. Minotaurs are available as a playable race in Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, though that sourcebook focuses primarily on Minotaurs in Ravnica, who have a heroic origin distinct from the Minotaurs in the Forgotten Realms. However, the content can still be adapted for other settings with a little creative tinkering. Minotaurs have a challenge rating of 3 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in Princes of the Apocalypse, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and Out of the Abyss. When resurrected as skeletons, Minotaur skeletons have a unique stat block and a mini in the Dungeon of the Mad Mage set. Remorazes are burrowing creatures in the Arctic who stay warm by generating intense heat inside their bodies, to the point that anyone within melee range will suffer burns. Giants will sometimes look for eggs or young Remorazes to train as guards, since adult ones cannot be tamed. While adults can swallow foes whole, young Remorazes merely have a bite attack, though they are still quite dangerous. Young Remorazes have a challenge rating of 5 and are found in the Monster Manual. They appear in Storm King's Thunder and Xanathar's Guide's Arctic Encounters table. There is an adult Remoraz mini in the Dungeon of the Mad Mage set.
And that's Monster Menagerie. Now, when we look at whether we want to recommend buying a particular set, there's really 2 criteria. One is how much use you're going to get out of it, and the other is the quality. As we've said before, a lot of these sets are associated with specific adventures, and in those cases, they may come with fairly niche creatures or NPCs that you wouldn't be able to get a lot of use out of if you were not running that adventure. Not so here. As it says on the tin, Monster Menagerie, this is actually a good one to get if you're a new DM, if you don't have a lot of minis, and you're just starting out or looking to round out a collection. And it really comes with a lot of monsters that are fairly iconic and fairly common that could show up in a lot of the published Wizards of the Coast adventures, in adventures you might want to design yourself, or in community-created content like on DM's Guild or elsewhere on the internet. So you get things like ghosts, skeletons, mummies, werewolves, vampires, just things that show up a lot. And again, if you're buying one or you're buying a lot of these boxes, you will get things that you can use. So there's also some of the rares, right? And these are the ones where in a case of 32, you're only going to get one of them. So it's like a 1 in 32 chance of getting them. So don't go into it trying to get one. But some of those rares, like the Lich, the Remoraz, again, fairly iconic. And also, they're interesting, they're powerful. So if you did happen to get one, and you could create a whole adventure with that as your big bad. And it would be something that, again, you would get a lot of use out of. The ones that are more common rarities, where if you bought like a case, you would end up with 4 or 5 of them, or where you're likely to get duplicates. A lot of those creatures are also creatures that do show up in groups in a lot of your battles. So on the battle map, there is potentially a situation where you would want multiples of those, so it wouldn't be going to waste. In addition to the monsters, this set also comes with a fairly diverse set of other types of minis. You have some beasts, like the wolf. You've got good aligned creatures, like your unicorns and your dryads and the satyrs to an extent. You also have options for player characters or NPCs in those Sword Coast Legends video game characters. So sometimes if you're just starting out as a player, as a DM, it can be a bit overwhelming looking at all the choices you have in terms of creating a character. And it may be beneficial to look at what are the minis you have that could fit. Take a look at that race and class and gender and create a story around that. Or, use the Sword Coast story and stats as well. Both are viable options. But really, at the end of the day, what that means is any box you get, anything you pull, right? You can pull. Each of the boxes comes with 1 large and 3 medium or smaller creatures. Anything you get is potentially something that you could use. There's not a lot of duds here. And so this really is a good general set, a decent set as a first choice if you're going to start collecting some of these miniatures from Icons of the Realms. As for the quality, when we were first looking at whether we wanted to actually fill out this set, we had some doubts. We looked at pictures online, and the paint jobs did not look very good. They did not seem to be quite as good as some of the more modern boxes, like Dungeon of the Mad Mage is the most recent one that's out as of the filming of this particular video. However, once we actually got these minis in our hands, once we looked at them, you can set them next to these newer minis that are purportedly better, and you wouldn't necessarily be able to tell which one is older. As always, as is true for any of these pre-painted miniature products, they are not going to win any art competitions, right? They're meant to be table ready. They're meant to be things where they're 1 or 2 inches tall. You put them on the table. You're busy having fun with your friends, with the other players and your DM. You're trying to tell a story. You're trying to figure out what you're going to do next in combat. You're not staring at these things right in front of your face. And so that is one thing we want to call out in our videos, that the way we film them sometimes does them a bit of a disservice. Now, sometimes you look at these minis and you're like, wow, there's a lot of really cool paint and detailing on these minis. And so that's a plus. But other times you'll look at them and be like, oh, that's kind of bad. Or like Hommet in this set, right? He doesn't have a mouth, as far as I can tell. You know, these minis are small, so obviously they're not going to sculpt facial features, and so they rely on painting them, and sometimes they don't quite paint them with the level of detail that you might want. But you're not going to be staring at these. And so just keep that in mind when you're looking at these, that we've kind of blown them up. They're super close up, and that's both got pros and cons to it. And just be aware that these are really actually quite small on your table. But overall, we were pleasantly surprised. We think that the quality of these were actually pretty good. And so we were happy with them. And so taking those 2 criteria into consideration, this would be a recommend. That was not necessarily what we were thinking going into this, but really it is a decent set. And it is fairly widely available. You know, some of these older sets from WizKids are sometimes out of print, but they tend to keep the Monster Menagerie lines available, probably for this specific reason, that these are ones that don't go out of style nearly as quickly. So that's it for the review. Now on to the standard YouTube stuff that Theo has gotten a good handle of, and I'm still practicing. But, you know, so if you enjoyed this video, please like the video, subscribe to our channel. If you do have any questions or comments or concerns, on a more serious note, we really do enjoy getting the feedback from you. We value it. We want to know what you're interested in seeing. We want to make sure that the information we're providing is the sort of information you're looking for so that you can make an informed purchasing decision. So, you know, I joke about the standard YouTube stuff, but if you have any comments, questions, concerns, please do leave them in the comments section below. We do like hearing from you. We try to respond to you. And we also have other social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, where you can follow us there as well to see what we're working on next, or behind the scenes footage, or just random thoughts, pictures of cats, you know, that sort of thing. So we hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time on The Gallant Goblin.